There we go. I hear it now. Fire in the hole. So let's first discuss, what did we discuss last week? That's what we want to first discuss.
Stewart,
Okay, what about him?
we ought to be good steward.
You need to be a good steward? What is a good steward?
Faithful, committed.
Faithful, committed. Anything else?
Somebody that has duty towards the things of God.
Okay. Anything else we covered last week?
Guard the gospel.
Huh?
Guard the gospel.
Guarding the gospel. All right. Anything else?
Faithful.
Faithful. Okay. Anything else? No. So we'll pull a little bit from last week and what we're going to study tonight, but I always find it's interesting to me how that some of the simplest things create such a shock to people. Okay, just some of the simplest things create just such a shock that people run into, and all of us sitting here, I'll willingly say attends church. Now, let me ask this question. Who has been in church more than 50 years? More than 50 years. Yeah, we got some. All right. Roger, put your hand down. You ain't that old. There's some things that just come to my mind that seem so interesting and shocking sometimes. I'll give us a verse start before we begin anything tonight that we already know. We've touched on it before. We've used it in different things we've taught and used throughout the church. What does it mean to sanctify? To set apart. So in 1 Peter 3:15, it says, "But sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear." Now, I want to clarify one thing that this verse says, and so you can read it yourself that it's in there, is it says, "Be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason." Now, it's not saying to tell what the hope is that's in you. It is that the reason, what the reason is, okay? And this very specific thing comes as what we will call somewhat use of in your life of life application. But I want to ask you a question first before we go any further. And this is a perspective thing that people do in a current 2026, 25, as we have seen people respond in different things. I want to ask you a question. How close are we to the end of time? Okay.
Closer than yesterday.
Okay. What do you think? How close are we to the end? Huh? How close are we? I will say this, and I'm helping Robert. Watch this. I'm helping Robert with Sunday school. I will say this defensively. If we say that we believe that the end of time is imminently near, much closer than what we may even understand or know or think, because the Bible always says he's going to come like a thief in the night and you're not going to win, and he cometh in an hour nobody knows. Biblically holding that true doctrine, there's no set of events I'm going to sit here and wait on. Because if that was the case, I can predict to you when it's going to end. You all build a house, you can somewhat predict a time frame, how long it's going to take you to do the job. How long does it take to build a house? Just a regular house. Couple months?
6 months.
6 months? Okay. But the predictability could
Oh,
change.
Most of them, we talking about 1,200 square feet.
Yeah.
With the basement, everything.
Yeah.
2 men. I mean,
In
I
6
know some that
months?
just, they can throw them together, but they'll put one in the drive, and it'll go off do another job, and it'll take them about 6 months too.
Yeah. So you take that example of they can kind of forecast bidding that weather and other things, whatever happens, and you can get supplies. They can forecastably know about when they're going to hit landing time of finishing things up and be ready to move in. The problem is that all of the biblical evidence that you and I see, read, and know doesn't tell us that. It doesn't tell us that at all. Have you found anyone yet outside of suicide that has known their exact time of death? Anybody that knew their exact time of death? Can't find it, can you? Enoch did not know when he was going to be transformed. All these other examples did not know. Lazarus come out of the grave. He did not know exactly when that was coming. There is tons of trends indicating, and a lot of people, even that are non-religious, non-social appearing religious people, are very pushed on even them indicate to say that they face the thought that the end time is imminent. Then comes the urgency. Here's the question why I ask. How possible do you all think it is that you will not see tomorrow?
Very possible.
How possible? Give me a percentage. How possible is that?
50%.
I'd say 100. It's 100% possible that you will not see tomorrow. Ginger's laying some weight on that, but think about it now. There is 100% chance that you might not see tomorrow. You're that close. Is that all right? Everybody agree? You're that close to the end. Okay. So when we look at that and we look at some things, we find a few things that we look at. And I just put into my mind, because we did this big thing yesterday. It was crazy amount of information in a short window of time. But in a real disastrous event. And I'm going to use this picture tonight to give us the idea. You're standing here on the shoreline. Okay? That is the tsunami. How long is it going to take it to get from there to where you're at? I'd say less than a minute. Seconds. That's all you've got. Is from where you're standing to where it's at. At that point, you know. Some of us, it's not well, listen, some people running is not an option. So you're going to climb something if you can, if there's anything. But let's just say that's it. That's real. That's right now. You see this great, immensible wall of water coming at you at a very high rate of speed. One of the things that we find is that the urgency to deal with the end is that close. You can see it right now. Can you not? You can see all around you, day by day, every day, that people are dying. And they will die, and they will continue to die. And every day, it seems like more people are in the obituaries. Have you not seen a lot of people dying right lately in the obituaries and the funeral homes lately? It's constant. I mean, the funeral home will tell you, Green Hills, Nelson, them will tell you there's times they've got them backed up, and they're holding them because they can't do them fast enough. Well, obviously, as that continues and science continues and evolves in the world and the way it turns, if I just take science as itself, there's a lot of people dying at a lot of different ages. If I take the Bible, then I done know that time's running out. We've done been warned of this from the day that he left here and said, I'll be back. Time is running out. We done know that. We agree and believe on that. But this is the thought process of just how close you and your family, friends, neighbors really are to imminent danger. That's the word I'm going to use in some perspectives, is danger. Because tsunamis do what?
Kill people.
Okay? They wipe it out and take everything back to the ocean with it. It's very common to see that. And so we've looked at some things that should motivate us to the urgency. And I want to put it that way is that um, how much urgency do you think we've got going on right now in this area as far as any type of urgency on the current, who is the current generation?
Kids.
Okay. It can include you yourself, but those younger and below us. How much urgency is there on the current generation to fulfill the Great Commission?
Very small.
Okay, very little. We all think, how much urgency is there on the current generation to fulfill the Great Commission? What is the Great Commission?
Going to all the world. Spread the gospel.
Okay. All right.
Now, we hear that Charlie Kirk made a big impact
Mm-hmm.
on that,
Mm-hmm.
but I know they came out with some numbers one time, but I often when I watch those shows with him and the students that are impacted by everything he's done, all the schools are, but I don't know that they have the urgency to spread the gospel.
Right.
They just want to be right.
His effect on them.
They want to be like an apologetic to some degree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How much do you see urgency anywhere in our area of fulfilling by the current generation to fulfill the Great Commission?
No.
You don't? Okay. Well, there's a few things that we need to look at tonight, and this kind of puts us into some perspective before we do something else tonight as a group. But one of the first things that we need to take from an example, okay, is Starbucks has a great model that they did. The church would be great to follow this model. We cannot be indifferent any whatsoever about our personal investment of the lives of people that we care about in proclaiming the gospel. And I'm going to give you an example. I've got it so I could tell you what happened. Starbucks in 2008 was in a free fall, and their stock had dropped almost 50%, and they reported losses of over $7 million. They had to close thousands of stores, and they brought their old CEO back. And within 1 year of bringing him back, he had gotten them up to revenues over $152 million. How did he do it? Anybody know?
Advertisement.
He didn't drop the price.
Oh, that's for sure.
He didn't do any new product line. He didn't come out with no new product whatsoever. There was no Frappuccino #2 or iced mocha or anything else. You know what he did? He closed all the stores. They were in a free fall, and their stocks had dropped over 50%. They were already 7 million below their dead end line. He came back in, the most successful CEO came back into Starbucks. He closed all the stores and retrained every employee immediately. And they decided to take what was essential for their company to function and impart it to the next generation so that they can know it and they can do it. And what they did in that short time over tripled their profit margin and the franchise number of places they've got open in America by closing everything they had and retraining everybody in how to do it and do it right. They tripled their operation, the number of stores, restaurants, whatever, and everywhere they've got it. We've got how many here? 2? We got 2 here now, LMU and Middlesboro. We've got 2 now. Huh?
It's too many.
Yeah. And
I hate Starbucks. I'm sorry.
so when you get into that, now think about that for a moment. Whose job is it to emulate? Think about it for just a second. Whose job is it to emulate and impart the truth to the next generation?
All Christians.
Okay. Specifically who, though? The elders. We go to the elders immediately. And God rigged it that way, if you really think about it. Paul is a very good example of one that comes to mind that we look at. One of the questions that Dawson Trotman had is still applicable today, and this is what he said. Where are your men and where are your women? As you visualize the next stage in your life, do you have a picture of the young people surrounding you that you're imparting the truths of the gospel to? Now, interestingly, this is interesting of how much goes on with younger people. The church needs to do it, and the young people need it. Here's one of the interesting things. Do you know that the average young person today will spend 10,000 hours of gaming? 10,000 hours of gaming by the age of 21. You know what amazes me is it takes less than half of that to earn a bachelor's degree. By the age of 21, they will have spent enough time playing a video game that they could have earned 2 bachelor's degrees in that amount of time. Jennifer's trying to accomplish that now. She's probably got over 10,000 hours in college. Easy.
8 years.
So there you go. She's pulled 8 years. So that's one of the interesting parts. Another thing, 40% of children right now in the U.S. are in a fatherless home. And 1/3 of boys in the U.S. are raised without a dad. Less than 3 out of 5 children do not have meals. Half of them don't even have a meal with their parents. Here's interesting. 2012 video game industry profits almost tripled those of the entire United States publishing industry. Not only are these things a waste of time, but then it takes away social skills, how they interact, how they can set goals, accomplish real accomplishments, interact with other people with confidence. And then the National Center of Addiction and Substance Abuse says that this makes them twice as likely to abuse alcohol and 4 times as likely to abuse drugs. There's an old African proverb that if we don't initiate the boys, they'll burn the village down. Timothy is a good example the Bible gives of an absent father. And who took him as a son? Paul. And if you notice that Paul and some other men that come into his life, Timothy became a co-author of some of the epistles and the pastor of one of the most influential churches in the first century. But they need a mentor. They need a mentor on the next generation. A lot of Timothys need a Paul. We see an example that commands us to deal with. You know that priests in the Old Testament started being a priest at what age? You may know the age they started being a priest. We're close.
33 or 30.
Ballparks. Some of them are younger, right around, but they're ballparking around the age of 30. And there was a mandatory retirement around the age of 50, if you find out how the priests worked in the Old Testament. But until, from the age of 50 at their retirement age until they died, they trained younger ones. After retirement at age 50, in the Old Testament, a priest would train the younger priest. In 2 Timothy, this is another example, we are told in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2, that the things that thou hast heard of me among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men, who shall be able to teach others also. And in the women's side, Titus 2 and 4 mentions about training the young women, that the older women train the younger women. General Patton, this is one of the things that was interesting in World War II. General Patton said this: always have a man trained and ready to take over your job in case you're killed. That's what he told them in World War II. The test of your ability is whether you could be killed and nothing would be lost. And the same thing comes in David's writing in Psalms chapter 71, coming from the prayer talking about the old man. And we come back all the way through to the generation coming next before us. And here's one thing that a pastor wrote. A pastor wrote this. This is a very interesting thing right here. Pastor Tom Nelson says, I want 20-year-old pallbearers for my funeral. Anybody know why? He wanted 20-year-old pallbearers for his funeral. And this is what he said. Why? He said, I want 20-year-old pallbearers at my funeral, young men with tears in their eyes, carrying my lifeless body, thanking God for the deposit I put into their souls. Tears in their eyes, carrying my lifeless body, thanking God for the deposit I put into their souls. William Tennant was a famous preacher noted in Bible history and all through church manuals in America. He was one of the most boring preachers you've ever met in your life. Horribly boring. His church in the 1700s made church history because they tried multiple times to throw him out and get him out of the church. He was so boring in the pulpit, they tried to vote him out. So, because he's Presbyterian, they couldn't do it because it don't work in their way of operation. It don't work like that. But he started discipling 5 young men. He built this little log cabin in the back of his yard where he would teach them in this cabin. 5 young men now. The most boring pastor you've ever sat under. Horribly boring. His little log cabin, they would start mocking him for his little college in America. And when those young men left the cabin, they left with a zeal and a fire within them and spread out across America. Here's one interesting thing. Do you know what William Tennant's little cabin of 5 became? You know what it is right now? Princeton. Sitting right dead where Princeton's at now. 67 other colleges in the United States started in the backyards of men who went out into America with fire in their eyes. 67 other college campuses exist on top of this one because of a fire in their eyes to light up a younger generation. Jennifer's here. What do they tell the school teachers you all are to instill? And what is it they say the teachers are supposed to go do? They call it something. What's that motto I hear teachers say all the time? How's they put that?
Instill a love of learning.
I don't know what they say. They say something. You're a teacher. You should know. She did not go to that one. Okay. But the need to instill this desire in them, we're going to look at in just a second because it's going where we're at. I want to ask you a question. This
Be
is
lifelong learners.
lifelong learners. Okay. A pastor pulled all of his church teachers and leaders in a room, and he asked them to share the gospel as they would to this 10-year-old 3 minutes before they fall asleep. They've done read their bedtime story. They've done said their prayers. Kid's done drooping its eyes. And you've got 3 minutes to share the gospel to a 10-year-old. What would you say? This is where you speak English. What would you say? 10-year-olds. 3 minutes before they go to sleep. He asked them to share the gospel as they would to this child in 3 minutes. What would they say?
I say John 3:16. Repeat after me and just think of it in your mind.
Okay.
So I love the world that it's only got.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Fell asleep reading about it.
Yeah. What else? What would you tell this 10-year-old child in 3 minutes to share the
When
gospel?
I tell the kids, I'll ask them, do they think they sin?
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what that is. Sometimes they do. They know 1 or 2 things they don't know. And then I would tell them, that we are sinners. I'm a sinner. They're a sinner. And
Mhm.
that because of that, we're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And that we will be going to a very bad place.
Mm-hmm.
Where the author of evil and the author of lies is. And that the only way to escape that is to put their trust in the Lord Jesus Christ. And then maybe tell them, who he is.
Mm-hmm. Remember, you got 3 minutes. It's going to be short
That's it.
because they're going to sleep. 3 minutes. You got 3 minutes. Anybody else got a thought of what they would say to this child? I'm going to give you the reason why that this is picked by a lot of churches in teaching leaders and teachers is what age are we starting the most liableness of a sinner state of accountability is a 10-year-old. How much attention span do they have? Limited. How much time do you have to speak with them? It's short. Let's think about that for a minute. This is one of our most prominent age groups that we try to reach. Even in Bible school, that class, I don't remember what age group they do, but whatever class it is that they've got them around 10, 12 years old, and then they break off into youth, but right around that meat and taters group, that's one of the most, and Steve can tell you, that's one of the most honed in areas. It's not because of the age of accountability being a specific number, but at those ages, they're starting to mature enough to know and understand more of what they're hearing. But you still have a short amount of time and a short attention span when it comes right down to it of sharing the gospel. The next thing he gave them is that you're on a subway, and he asked them to share the gospel as they would to a complete stranger on the subway that is getting off at the next stop. What would you say now? Complete stranger. You're sharing the gospel to. They're getting off at the next stop. Subway's moving. What would you say then?
Destined to see no Jesus.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. You know how much we prefer to have this in a warm-up situation? Most people would rather share this gradually than to jump right in the pond of alligators and let it go. Most people would rather jump into this over a period of time of warming people up to it. And that is reasonable to do, but there's also times when you need to be able to at least introduce it in a limited amount of time. A limited amount of time. And tonight, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that tonight with something we're going to deal with. I have got some people in here tonight that have dealt with and have some complications with some people that they have been working with and witnessing to. Bear with me just one second. Let me get off this screen so we can do something. So, as we're here tonight, I'm going to let some of our people in the class share with us a situation. And the situation that they're going to share with us, we're going to respond to. We're going to respond to. And our whole incentive goal in our response is to share the gospel. So, number one tonight, tell us what's going on with person number one.
Well, I have a close friend who has come to me and confided in me that she is simply overwhelmed with family problems. And she tells me that the anxiety she's feeling and the stress that this is causing is that she feels like she is drowning and don't know what to do.
How do we speak to that person? How do we share the gospel with that person that is under major stress and duress? How do we do that? Tell me, how are we going to respond to that tonight? Anybody?
Yeah, I need an answer.
Yeah. Ginger's looking for help.
Yeah.
And anybody can say whatever they want. Just remember, be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason for the hope that is in you, with meekness and fear. So not only is this a requirement and a commandment to us that we are to do that, but we are to be ready. Because remember, we have identified the urgency of how quickly it's going to end. And we're that close to the end of time coming at any second. This, I want you to put it in your mind, number one, this could be the only opportunity that is given to share it. That could be the only opportunity the Lord has opened the door to allow the sharing with that person. What are we going to say to them?
I think you talk to them and get them to start telling you what the problem is.
Okay.
Talk it out.
Okay.
That can lead into talking about Jesus.
Mm-hmm. For a person that is overwhelmed, I will say this from years of experience in medicine. From a person that is overwhelmed, I can tell you that one of the things that we find is that most people who are overwhelmed and stressed can't tell you anything because it's all a blur. When they're in a true state of panic, Ginger can tell you she's working in the hospital. True states of panic, paranoia, anything along those lines, commonly is an issue because it's all a blur now. They don't know what to think, what to feel. They don't know what they want to do, what they don't want to do. And they are, the key word here is overwhelmed. How do we respond to that person right there?
I would just pray with them immediately. I would just ask them if they pray, pray immediately, pray a prayer, maybe quote something from the Bible in the prayer, something they can hang on to, and you can remind them about it later. And just, let them know about the peace of God. After the prayer, just tell them about, that they can have peace. They still may have to deal with the conflicts, but they can have true peace.
That's right.
Yeah, but what are they supposed to do when you say, I've prayed and prayed, and nothing's happened and nothing's changed? Where is God?
How do we respond to that?
Well, God is here, and He is sovereign in heaven. He is watching over everything. He has the ultimate say, and you have to take steps towards Him. You have to reach out to Him. You have to pray to Him. You need to take steps toward Him to defeat the evil that we're surrounded by.
Okay. Any other responses to our overwhelmed person? One of the very things that we see, and this is very common, is that is one of the very things that we see, and it's most common with people that come to the altar. And I will say this, not from over and under practice, but I will say this from being in a lot of churches, that we are one of the few that has a very active prayer operation that goes on the altar. I can take you to churches that they couldn't tell me when the last person was they ever seen on an altar. Steve can tell you. Many places, you'll never hear people speaking of using an altar. So to see in one service here, and it's not abnormal every service, someone comes to the altar, but not only that, there's services where continuously people come to the altar. But because of that very, very thing, and that's what we know, is the fact that it's no different for Ginger to have her person or friend she's trying to help that is the same model that's coming to the altar on a Sunday morning. How do we counsel and share the gospel with them? So we've got pray with them. What else did we say we're going to do? Here's the one thing we're missing. I'm going to point this out because this is really it when we get down to it. The one thing that we are missing most heartedly with is so far you've backed nothing with no evidence. And all of our world today are truth seekers, fact finders. And if you're going to try to push anything on them that's not what they'd already know, or any information of hope to them that they need to know, it has to be right here. Now, what Bible are we going to give them to share some type of peace? I'll use that word, that there's peace or hope in their situation. Any verses you can think of right off the bat.
One place that says be anxious for nothing.
Yep. Be anxious for nothing.
Be anxious for nothing. That's the same thing as worry.
Yep. Yep. Any other verses that come to your mind tonight that...
Psalms 23.
Okay. Anything else? I mean, we need biblical proof that our beliefs are grounded and structured on truth. And in order for it to be structured on truth, we've got to have the truth and present the truth is what I'm saying. So because of that, what else can you think of Bible related that we can go off of to say that we use to help this person? Anything else that comes to your mind?
James 1, where he says that there's going to be diverse problems in our lives.
Okay.
He kind of tells the whole chapter. He tells you kind of how to walk your life as a Christian, so that way you can defeat all this, be able to face all these things, and to face it with joy, if that's what we're believing, but to face it with joy.
Right? Anything else as an example?
I'd say like fear not, because it's in the Bible 365 times.
Okay.
So every day should fear.
Okay. Anything else?
One that you're all about. Lean not to your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge Him.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Cast all your cares on Him.
Okay. Anything else?
John 3:16.
Okay. Any others that come to mind?
Let not your heart be troubled,
Okay.
believe in God.
Where is that?
John,
Okay. Any others?
1 John 1:9,
Okay.
if we confess our sins before Him, He is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness.
Okay. Any others? You see how easy we know this stuff. It's just harder to get it like that. See how hard it is to really contemplate. You're trying to wrap your head around all that you've read and learned and heard, and you're trying to wrap it down to focusing, bam, one problem, one time. All right. But we've got some decent amount of, let me get this fixed. We've got a decent amount of things going on right here that we're done using tonight. So that we've got this list compiled of, as you can see. That's a pretty decent amount of Bible. Now, what I'm telling us tonight is that the more of this that we use and the less of our thinking and opinion toward their situation that we give, the more insight we're going to help them, because our job is to do what?
spread the gospel,
Spreading
share the word.
share the word, the Great Commission, the urgency of getting the point across, the urgency. Okay. Now, what about number 2 situation? Who's got our number 2 situation?
So, sitting at a professional development with my math and science colleagues, someone was saying, like, why do you believe in God? Doesn't science disprove all of that?
How do we respond to that?
Actually, it does not, because math is part of the sciences, and Kurt Gödel actually proved it mathematically, and the proof has been run through AI generators, and even AI can't disprove it,
Mm-hmm.
and never in time has something been created for nothing. I mean, scientists can create something in a lab from almost nothing, but there has to be something there to jumpstart that creation of nothing,
Mm-hmm.
from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So if people didn't exist before creationism, there had to be a person or a being or a greater existence there to jumpstart that creation,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the only way it can be done.
Mm-hmm. How do we answer the question, why do you believe in God? Doesn't science disprove everything? How do we answer that?
No, it never has disproved it.
But what are we going to give them as truth? Our answer that we can back. And I know we can pull, because we went through in here, about how science and numbers have went plumb through the book to prove itself. But how are you going to answer this skeptic person that you've got right on the line? Remember, the tsunami you can see. The tsunami is that close. I can tell you thousands of accounts you can look up on the internet of people that spoke to someone and they were dead in 10 minutes in a car wreck or whatever happened. Instant. This is the last time you get to present it. How do we answer to that skeptic that Jennifer's working with at the lunch break that says, why do you believe in God?
Just look around all the beauty that He's made.
Okay.
Genesis.
Uh-huh.
Genesis 1.
Okay. What else? We're going to build our case here. What we're going to use biblically to defend why we believe in God.
Well, I asked them to explain how they got here,
Mm-hmm.
how the first man got here. Question them.
Assuming they give us all erroneous science answers and the monkeys and everything else.
Oh my gosh, I had a student in class, he almost got suspended because his lines teacher trying to teach evolution.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I didn't come from no monkey.
Yeah.
You might have, but I didn't.
Yeah. And that's big in a lot of the classes they're teaching right now with it all in the material. But why do you believe in God? Tell me.
Because there has to be a reason why we're here. There has to be a reason we're so perfectly made. Our eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Every scientist will tell you that it take millions and millions of years to come up with this eyeball.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just too many things like that.
But even if a science person, even if a science person goes on and on about evolution, yeah, evolution is a thing.
Mhm.
But we didn't evolve from nothing.
Right.
We have evolved from cavemen and pre-technology, and we're not like we were 2,000 years ago. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, as a human race, we have evolved. We have gotten smarter and there are
Advanced.
way more opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Which people can argue that we've actually gotten dumber, because I've seen some writings from some really smart people, and you think, well, you can probably argue it either way.
Yeah. But we're wanting Bible to give the skeptic that wants to know why you believe in God. What are you going to give them out of this book? Now, let me give you this word for a moment. Let me put this in your mind. This is the only tool I'm allowing you to use. You can't use Google. You can't use anything else, whatever. This is the only tool that I'm allowing you to go by and use, because this is the only thing you have that's the truth. So what in this entire book do you have that you would give to defend the question of why do you believe in God?
Miracles keep performed.
Okay?
Even today, doctors can't explain.
Okay? Somebody
I've
else?
seen a fella on video, he goes to colleges,
Mm-hmm.
and he tells them, just read Matthew, Mark, Luke, the four Gospels.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's enough evidence in there, the way Jesus lived his life, miracles he done, what he did, how he lived his life, how he died, was buried, and rose again. If there's enough evidence there,
Mm-hmm.
put your faith in him.
Mm-hmm.
It all comes by hearing and hearing by the word of God.
That's right.
And you gotta just read it and come up for yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
It's reliable, and that's what he keeps asking. He said, I can't prove nothing to you. He said, I can't prove. He said, I was in the 21st century. He said, I can't stand here and say I can prove to you that Jesus rose from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
But he says the accountability of the word of God.
Mm-hmm.
So there's enough evidence in there to prove
Mm-hmm.
accountability by eyewitnesses.
Mm-hmm.
That he died, he lived, he was born, he lived 33 years on this earth, and all that he did, of eyewitness testimony,
Mm-hmm.
that he was crucified and he was buried and he rose again.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you probably can't find a scientist that doesn't, or that does say that Jesus didn't exist. They all agree he was definitely here.
Mm-hmm.
And why not go to the Bible that's got his very words in it,
Mm-hmm.
that has been hammered on through the, millions of years. Well, we don't millions of years, but it's been hammered on more than any other book, and yet it still stands. And it's a transformational book. If you read it, there's so many people saying it's changed my life.
Mm-hmm. One thing that we have to get in our heads real quick in today's world of doing any witnessing or sharing any gospel is that we're not trying to win any argument. We're not even in an argument.
If you're talking to science people or math people or anything like that, why don't you just look at it from a numbers perspective and a percentage perspective? Because the Bible says that when you face judgment, if you never accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, that He will say, "Depart from me, I never knew you."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's just look at it statistically.
100%.
Okay, so God exists, God don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
You believe, you don't believe.
Mm.
Okay, so you believe in God exists and you accept, okay, great. You're in a good spot.
Mm-hmm.
God don't exist and you still believe in God. What are you out? You lived a good life, you helped people, you were a good person, you were morally sound. Okay, what were you really out?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You were a good person.
Mm-hmm.
God don't exist and you don't believe. Okay, that is one time you were in. But what if God does exist and you don't believe? Look at where you're going.
So I have a brother.
So statistically
Yeah.
wise.
I have a brother that's he's agnostic, him and his wife.
Mhm.
And to this day, they still are. I have the same argument with him. Because he'll listen to me a little bit. And he finally blows it off. And I'm like, Jim, I said, a couple of things I always hit him with. I'm like, tell me this. Or I said, think about this. If you're right, there's no creator. We're just what we are. It's
Mhm.
what we do. We're here. We're so with no harm, no foul. I said, great. I said, we all die. That's just it. I said, but if I'm right, you're in trouble. You're in bad trouble, dude.
Mhm.
And he just shake his head and agree with me.
Mhm.
And then the last thing I usually hit him with, I'm like, well, then explain this to me. I said, turn on the TV. Anybody, turn on the TV, whatever you want to watch. I said, you see all this stuff about Israel. I said, explain that to me.
Mhm.
Why does the world hate this tiny little country? Why do they got to have that land? Look at all this Arab thing around them. They got to have this little sliver of land. I said, the Jews moved to Africa. They don't want that land. They want to go down there and kill the Jews in Africa.
Mhm.
I said, it's because those are God's people. That's his land. And everybody hates him for that.
Mhm.
And all the prophecies.
We'll go with that. That's as far as it goes.
Mhm. So we offer biblical backing to that skeptic about asking why we believe in God. What about number 3? We had a situation that had come up as the third issue somebody's dealing with. What is that?
Okay, so I was in class and I met this girl, and we started talking about just life things, and we got on the topic of religion. So I asked her, I was like, how do we go to heaven? And she told me that she doesn't need religion because she's a good person. And her entire plan to get to heaven is by being a good person and her good deeds.
This is also an argument with my brothers.
Mhm. They're a good person, and they plan on being good enough to get into heaven. What are you giving them out of your tool to use? What are we giving them to defend our sharing of the gospel? What are we going to give them?
I'll tell you, there's none good but God.
Okay.
None of us. Sorry.
Okay. All right.
I'd give them the Bible verse, Ephesians chapter 2, 8 through 9.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, for by grace are you saved through faith, that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. So that shows, that it's not by our good deeds that we're saved. Nobody deserves to be saved through their deeds,
Mm-hmm.
but it's through His grace.
Mm-hmm.
Well, usually people will ask, do you feel like you're a changed person? Do you feel like you're a different person?
Mm-hmm.
A changed person?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times some people don't even have a salvation story, or they just think that that probably could happen. If they just walk along enough with God's people and decided in their heart and their mind that they wanted to be a Christian. But I see those scenarios sometimes.
Mm-hmm. I always like to use Romans 8 and 6 because it drives a nail in the coffin to say that to be carnally minded is death. To be spiritually minded is life and peace. Anything else that we add to this response to the person at her school and college that says they don't need religion because they're a good person and plan to be good enough to get into heaven?
Well, the Bible says the heart is terribly wicked.
Okay.
Everybody says it's terribly wicked. If you've not been changed, you don't see a change, then your heart is deceitful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ray Comfort, if you know who that is, the guy that's on YouTube, and he's on the beach talking to people. That's the angle he goes from. You think you're a good person, but they all do.
Mm-hmm.
So he starts dragging through the 10 Commandments. Now that we've all, basically, if you committed one of them, you've done them all.
Mm-hmm.
And once he points all that out to them, I still think you're going to heaven. It's miraculous that half of them still think they are.
Mm-hmm.
But if you consider yourself a good person and you do transgressors and stuff like that, are you not trying to people please your way to heaven because the Bible don't not say that you can't serve man and serve God?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anything else from the Bible?
Well, since Genesis, everyone is born in sin.
Uh-huh.
And if you don't go to Christ, you'll die in sin.
Okay.
What wages of sin is death.
Right. Any other examples? That's right. Any other Bible that we're going to give an answer to?
There's none of us that are without sin. If you say you are, then you're a liar.
Mhm.
That's the truth.
Right.
The truth is an enemy.
Right. Any others? Any other Bible examples?
That was one of the dilemmas the rich young ruler brought to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
He says, Lord, what must I do to have eternal life? And he says, you know the commandments, keep the commandments. And the rich young ruler said, those I have kept from my youth up. And the Lord said, thou said well, you done well. But he says, you lacketh one thing.
One thing. Mm-hmm.
And it went right to the heart of his heart.
Mm-hmm.
Sell all that you got.
And give it to the poor.
And come follow me.
Right.
And come follow Christ means that
Cut it off.
he died for all.
Yeah.
And all were dead, and one, and no one's justified,
Mhm.
righteous in their own righteousness.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Any other examples that you can think of? Now you see, we're building a case to defend our answer. We're not arguing. We're not winning an argument. We're not presenting anything in a court of law here to rule and win the case. All we're doing is sharing the gospel. It's not about your opinion or what you think. Only thing we should be telling anybody in the matters of discussion of these type of examples is what we can defend.
Well, arrogance is a sin. And
Alone.
how can you be so arrogant to think
Yeah.
that you don't need God to get into heaven?
Oh yeah.
So that is the whole premises of the Israelites.
Yep.
We have Abraham as our partner. We have the Ten Commandments.
The prophets.
We have the law.
Yeah.
We don't need nobody to die for us.
Right.
We don't need
They've already got all of
this
it.
is Jesus Christ to save
And
us.
we're God's kept people.
We're God's kept people.
They used it.
We're good as we are.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then there's story after story after story after story in the Old Testament where they couldn't do that.
Yep. Well,
So
Paul
that
even,
wasn't saving them.
well, Paul even tells Peter, says you're trying to put restrictions on the Gentiles that ye yourself could not keep.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was ordinances, carnal ordinances and practices. They were trying circumcision,
Mm-hmm.
coming back under judicial law.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul put it, said, I withstood Peter to his face because he was doing the same thing. He was trying to add to the grace of God.
Right. All right. What about our fourth situation we ran into? Somebody else had a situation they've dealt with and want us to know, tell us how we're going to respond to. Go ahead.
A friend argues that truth is relative and that whatever makes you happy is fine. Questioning, why do you follow strict biblical standards?
So whatever makes you happy, he says that his person's told him, whatever makes you happy is fine. So why do you follow strict biblical standards? How do we respond to that?
Go back to the Old Testament again, same old thing. Those people were all doing everything that seemed, every man was doing what seemed good to him.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually they told them passing their kids through the fire and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, getting up at 5 o'clock, everyone do work. They be
I said this to our
Here I am,
ex-
killing it.
He said, you can't live without your life. It's relative truth. He said, there's no absolute truth.
Mm-hmm.
He says, anything you want to come up with could be your truth or relative truth.
Mm-hmm.
He says, he even pointed out, he says, this fellow was in the audience, he says, if I want to haul off and slap him in the face, and he says, is that wrong or right? And he says, well, that's wrong. The young fellow did. He said, that's wrong. He says, to you, he says, my relative truth says, I can haul off and slap him. I don't like him.
Mm-hmm.
But there has to be an absolute. An absolute truth only comes from one absolute word.
Mm-hmm.
That's the word of God.
Mm-hmm. Anything else we're going to defend with this situation?
That's what God says in the Bible, that He is the way, the truth, and the life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other examples of why we follow such a strict biblical standard? instead of just being a good person. Any other defense?
God has commanded us to keep his commandments.
Okay. Any others that we're building in our case?
Why is there a need to be good if there's not, if God doesn't exist? Why should we?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we just live in chaos and anger?
And that's what I'm thinking, chaos, right? That's gonna be the ultimate bottom line after a few years.
Any others?
And how do we live in a country? How do we live in a world that laws and norms and everything are based on Christianity? Even if you don't, I mean, like, even if you don't read our laws and the court system and everything, all of that is built on Christianity. Our forefathers wrote the Constitution
Mm-hmm.
based on Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, if you talk to them long enough, you'll find out that they really don't disagree about the moral law. They don't realize that it only comes from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
All of the moral law comes from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some good Buddhist statements and, you know, some other religious things that kind of stand out here and there. But everything that everybody's living really all over the world has come from the Bible. They just don't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people, there are people that don't want moral law at all. Of course, they're Satanists probably, who knows? But the
They
people
don't want moral law until it directly affects
them,
them.
yeah. I agree with that.
It was the same thing when people didn't want to fund the police and stuff like that. You know, when bad stuff started happening to them, who did they want?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not on the same eternal scale as the existence of God, but it is on a scale that people can look at and understand.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want it until they needed it.
The ones I love the most are these testimonies of people who didn't believe in moral law, and they come to the end of their life, and in the last couple of days of their life, when they're just screaming, they're unsettled, they're worried, they're concerned, they're saying they're going to go to hell, they're worried now. They didn't think about hell. They didn't even teach about hell. They told everybody to ignore the hell. But then in their dying days, it's obvious that they are very worried about it, very consumed by it, very tortured by it.
Mm-hmm. All right. What about our fifth situation? We've got a situation number 5.
I had a friend and she received terrible news.
Mm-hmm.
She failed her test. Her boyfriend broke up with her, and she lost a loved one in the very same day.
Mm-hmm.
And feels abandoned and angry at God.
Okay. Now, in this example, all we're going to say, we're not going to try to evaluate anything about the situation or succumb to any of the information. She's received all this horrible news. She's failed a big test in college. Her boyfriend's broke up with her, and then she had a family member die. It's a bad situation. It's all going on events at the same time. What Bible verses are you going to give me?
The whole book of Job.
Okay. It fits. The whole book of Job. Any other examples? I only want Bible now. Any Bible verse that you're going to give me?
God says that suffering comes to the just and the unjust alike.
Okay. Any others?
Psalms, it says the Lord is close to the brokenhearted.
Okay. Any others?
We should praise God in our suffering.
Okay.
Psalms 46.
Okay. Any others? Any others? Bible examples. What are you going to give me? Huh? Okay. All right. Any others?
Look at King David. God loved King David, and he and his son that was wedlock was taken.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bible even says that God loved King David, and he blessed him.
Any other examples? Okay. What about another situation? We got another situation on the table. This one just happens to be a very common situation. So what else do we have here?
I'm not sure why I'm a Christian. I believe in God, but I'm just not ready for a commitment. I have enough commitments. Getting married, I just got into medical school, and there's just so many rules in my life already. I don't need any more, and there are already tons of people trying to tell me how to live my life.
What's our response to this scenario? They don't really know why they're not a Christian, but they believe in God. They're just not ready for any commitment. They've got enough already. What's our response to them? Bible only.
Today is the day of salvation.
Okay.
You don't have no hope tomorrow.
Okay. Anything else?
Not sure where it's at. Seek God while he can be found.
Okay. Yep. Anything else you can think of?
Psalms 37:5. Commit thy way unto the Lord, trust him also in him, and he shall bring it to pass.
Okay. Anything else comes to your mind?
You have all these things that you want to do, and God's plan is not to hurt you, but to prosper you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know what verse that is.
Okay. Anything else? Any other Bible examples that you can think of?
What's the scenario of believer?
They believe in God. They're just not sure why they're not a Christian, but they're not ready for any type of commitment.
So they're basically reformed.
Yeah, I mean they're just not ready for any type of commitment. So they say.
You know, being reformed, we will be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they say. Any other examples to add?
Did somebody say, to not be lukewarm? Did anybody say that?
Yes. All right. I'm going to give us some info here of something. This statement right here. When you're asked about anything to do, this statement is a total of 17 words. And it takes about 6 seconds to read the statement of the gospel is the good news of what God has done in Christ to secure our salvation. 6 seconds, you can say that. If you're asked by a person in the subway or somebody in line behind you at Kroger or Walmart, if you are anywhere else that the basis of Christianity or something relative to sharing the gospel comes, this 17 words can be said in 6 seconds. Now, in the 3-minute window of that child, a whole lot can be said. If you think about it, a whole lot can be said in a 3-minute window. But our main goal, the wave, the tsunami is coming. Our main goal is that we are trying to reach as many as possible. You know, if our basis of belief as a Baptist was that we build a relationship and we foster that into something that we can share the good news and grow with them, it would be bad, because you think about how much time does the Jehovah's Witness have at your front door? How long does the Mormons have sitting at your front porch? How much time do they have to get their stuff into your ears? That quick. You know, at Walmart, where I see them all the time, they've got from the time you walk outside to the time you get to your car. That's how quick that they are mindful of what they're trying to do. And they know, what's the odds of you seeing that same one again? Because they come here from all over and just for a time, then they leave. The odds of you running into them again are minute and few. What's the odds of God placing you right at a table across from someone in a restaurant and you're the last one that person will ever see, meet, or talk to before they're gone? That's it. Dead. Gone. The last opportunity. I will say this just to clarify. I've heard it said in church a lot that God only gives you one opportunity. The Bible does not say that. There's no Bible backing to say that you're promised one chance. There's nowhere in the Bible that promises one opportunity. And a matter of fact, if you go a little bit farther than that, it doesn't promise anything inevitably after the first time that you are presented the gospel. It's by grace and mercy that we see that. But I hear a lot of times people says God will only give you one opportunity to get saved. Well, that can't be so. That can't be so. Because there's tons of people in church says, I should have came when I first heard it. I know I should have come, but I didn't. If we believe that, we should say, well, brother, you're going to hell. I mean, seriously, that's what we should say if we really believe that
How
way.
many times was Jonah told before he wound up?
He got redirected. Okay?
How many times
That's how it worked.
How many times was he told?
That's how it got worked. He got redirected and put where he was already going to be going. But you think about it, the fact that the chances are very high, because if we're believing you're already here and in the last days and you're sitting right in the middle of it, and you believe that he could come back before you get to the house tonight. Okay. At that belief, then this is the last time your opportunity is to share it. The last time the opportunity is for them to hear it. And that's it. Because you don't know if you'll be back to the time of seeing that person again. Even if it's your family. You don't have no promise of seeing your sister, your brother, or whoever again. It may never happen. They may be dead and gone before in the morning. But the one presentable time that God places you in the position to be able to do it, I'm telling you, the first thing we need to be doing is preparing right now for that moment. Because I also always look at it this way. If you pray for people you know that need prayer or need God or are lost, it's also likely, very possible likely, that God puts them right in front of your feet.
Well, they don't have to have their donkey tell me.
Yes.
I mean, after it's so many times.
The donkey had to speak. But you think about that seriously. If you pray, Lord, and you pray to save your family, to save so-and-so, to get your brother back in church, who is already showing the Lord the desired, earnest prayer of calling them out? Who do you think is also very likely to be one that's put right dead in their path? Put right dead in front of them. Every time. It's very, very potentially able to be used. And all the while, think about that for a moment, how much you do or don't say. Tons of people always admit they should have said something when they didn't, and they didn't say something when they should have. I hear that all the time. And hindsight is what? I mean, it's nothing you can change. It's nothing you can do. And I always go back to this. I'll show us this so we can see this, but I'll always use this example here if I can get it to play. This song is in our hymnal, but there's a recitation at the beginning of it that I want you to hear just exactly what Reuben tells in this. Just listen to this, and the words come up here in just a second.
My friend, I stand in judgment now, and I feel that you're to blame somehow. On earth, I walked with you day by day, and never did you point the way. You knew the Lord in truth and glory, but never did you tell me that old story. My knowledge then was very dim, and you could have led me safely to it. And though we lived together on earth, you never told me of that second birth. And now I stand this day condemned, because you failed to mention him. You taught me many things that were true. I called you friend, and I trusted you. But I learned now that it's all too late, and you could have kept me from hell in my fate. We walked by day and talked by night, and yet you showed me not to lie. You let me live, love and die, and you knew I would never live on high. I called you my friend in life. I trusted you through joy and strife. And now coming to this horrible end, could I now call you my friend?
You look at, you think about in your mind how many people that we see and interact with all the time, family, friends, and other acquaintances, and whatever those are. How many did we miss the opportunity to do it with? And then the question comes that I've already brought up tonight is what are we fostering behind us? Because if we're dead and gone, I'm going to tell you, we're in trouble. What's going on right now in the church is, I had a friend of mine the other day that pastors a church. He told me, he said, if our thoughts is we come to church on Sunday and we come to church on Sunday night and that's it, he said, we failed. He said, that's a waste right there. We failed. He said, the limitations we put on ourselves to just staying inside those four walls was never what God told us to do. He never instituted a church in a building, as a matter of fact. If you study history of church, it never occurred in a structural facility. But where we're at today with our young people, if you just take the young people in a church, are we fostering them to be at that state, as the pastor said, he wanted the 20-year-old young pallbearers carrying him to the graveyard. That picture I showed you is, they are now doing this in several schools, the ROTC thing, the junior ROTC. They're having them ROTC boys carry caskets of veterans to their grave. That's what they're doing. They're carrying some veterans that have no pallbearers to their graves. They're doing this all over the place in the ROTC program. But he wanted 20-year-olds that would look over with tears and say of what that person deposited into them before they left has made an effort to get their attention. And when we look at how much time we waste, 10,000 hours by the age of 21 playing a game. You're in minute area of how much you're in church. If you're in church here 4 hours a week, you take that into math. How much do you spend time with people the rest of the week? Roger's a high traveler. He goes back and forth to Knoxville like all the time. I'm sure he sees people all the time somewhere. And the example of that is when Lois had the heart transplant, he went over and sat with a woman in the waiting room, wasn't it? And what did she say to him?
Before I left,
Yeah. You prayed with her?
I prayed for her husband, he was having surgery on his kidney.
Mm-hmm.
It just hurried me in that big room. And I looked at her and tell she was in trouble or worried, whatever. And I walked over to her and I said, would it be all right if I come and talk to you? I told her who I was and why I was there. She told me her husband. I said, you want me to pray for her? She said, yeah. So I prayed. We talked and talked. And then my family finally come there and I said, I'm going to spend time with my family. She said, told me something I'll never forget. She said, you were an angel sent from God. All I did was what God wanted me to do.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little thing, you know.
Mm-hmm. Just a few minutes. Did you see her anymore after that?
I asked her if she wanted me to come by and see her husband.
Mm-hmm.
I said, Lois, all right. I was with him the next day or the day after. I went down to the room and he wasn't there. So I went back up to where Lois was at. He was in one room, and one room in between, and then Lois.
2 doors down.
They just happened to be a coincidence, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, I think God wanted me to.
Mm-hmm.
I went in and talked with him.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody knows me. I'm quiet. I'm shy. But when God does something like that,
Mm-hmm.
you have to move. I mean,
The sad part.
that's just one time. I mean,
Yeah. the sad part is we seem to only be motivated when we're in a moment of crisis. It's like we're in a last minute halt trap that then we'll say something. But until we're in that moment of crisis, we're not going to say anything. When all of your hope, all of your joy is all from good news. And the good news would be much better to talk about than what 90% of people today talk about in conversation. What was it like in your life before Facebook and TikTok and Instagram? What was your life like? Sharon says it was great before that.
I love it.
She loved it.
Yeah, fuck nobody.
Complete isolation. You was just living your life and talk to who you met and talk to who you talked to on the phone. That's it, wasn't it? That's it. Went to work. You see, as more has come into our environment, more has evolved and into our space that we collectively participate in, I'll put it that way. Just how much of what we're doing is the conversation. Our conversation that we're supposed to put on is what? What's our conversation? Put on the conversation of, what's Paul telling? Christ. Put on the conversation of the good news. Your sharing of the gospel. I have been amazed in the last 3 weeks that I sat in a room with about 20 ministers / pastors, and I heard almost no talk about the Bible. What an odd place to be in for just a moment. Think about the fact I'm in a room with about 20 others. In this huge room that we're in, there's about 20 of them, and not one conversation Bible comes up. Where are we at? You just think about that for a moment. Where are we at? And if you say, we're at the end of time, there's the urgency for the Great Commission. Are we fostering that younger generation? We cannot fail to do the one thing we're supposed to do, contend for the faith. We cannot fail by working with our young people. And it's not ice cream, hot dogs, and run around in laps and play jungle gym. That's not it. There's nothing wrong with recreation in a church to foster a family environment. But if that's all you're fostering is a 10-minute, I seen this the other day that the church advertised within an hour of here that they have a 10-minute lesson with the youth and then they go into games. What will that bunch do when they're the only ones alive running the church? What will they do? Yeah, what will they do? And all the while,
Streamline it and make that 10 minutes less?
I have no idea.
That's what's going to happen.
Few words. It's going to. But think about the fact of all the ones you have influence on now to foster. You know, Robert would have never believed that he'd have been a deacon and be this old. You'd have never got him to believe that in his 20s. That probably never crossed his mind. Just honest thought here. But now that he's there, he can now look back and see that what he did or was going on in his 20s, he knows to foster what needs to be getting put into those eyes and ears and the people that he's around and affected, that he builds houses and works for. What are we doing? I always ask the question of what are we doing in our commandment of always being ready to give a reason. We got to be able to give an answer of the reason. And the only defense you'll ever have that anybody can ever back you on is this right here. I can't help you if you tell somebody your opinion and then you send them to me to ask questions about the Bible. Can't help you. I'm not going to. Your opinion's between you and them. What I will defend and what I will answer them back is exactly what this reads. And that's the only thing you can give them to back whatever you're telling to share the gospel. Anybody else got anything tonight they'd like to add?
You talking about the urgency, people. Me and my sister talked on the phone, and we kind of got on the same subject. People have lost the urgency to get people saved.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what you got to do first. You got to get people saved.
Right.
And like we talked, preachers don't seem to be concerned.
Mm-hmm.
There's no urgency.
Mm-hmm.
And way back, several months back, and you talk about things like these things that come up on these things you have people read. she had somebody come across Facebook for prayer about somebody that's in their family. And it was somebody, you know, church related.
Mhm.
And she gave them what she felt personally out of the Bible that helped her.
Mhm.
And the response she got was like, they almost took offense.
Mhm.
But like I say, changing the subject, me and Roger's work, we don't have to deal with public. We're out
The
building
customer
somebody's
will be.
house or whatever.
Mhm.
But this first time we didn't have church, what was it? December 23rd or something, December around December, like December. We didn't have a church service. And I had a dentist appointment. See, like I say, I'm always just out on a construction job. Me and Roger don't have to bother with anybody. But I went to the dentist. But it was amazing. This weekend, you know, the storm was being predicted. The snowstorm was being predicted. Everybody I run into, that I talked to, that I bumped into, receptionist, clerk, everybody, about the first thing out of their mouth was, "Are you prepared for the storm they're getting predicted?"
Yep. Milk and bread.
Ready?
Milk and bread.
Well, I mean, they just said, "Are you ready?" You know, yeah, I'm ready as I ever be. That's my response.
Mm-hmm.
But it struck me how, you know, everybody was, the urgency was, "Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Are you prepared?" But people don't seem to be prepared. They're, I don't know how you say the complacency about what's going to heaven. You know, they're all ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
Or they have the urgency to.
Because a snowstorm is a temporary process.
Well, it's also
It's easy to wrap your mind around.
Well, it was urgent. It was coming. It was predicted. Every newscast, every forecaster was saying, "We're going to get this. We're going to get this. This area's going to get this."
But they've lived in that. People have lived in. People now. I mean, like, I'm not talking back in the times of the ark. People now have lived in what it's like to be trapped inside because of a snowstorm or a natural disaster. So they have a way, they have a means of relating to that. But they've never lived through the end of the world. So mentally, you really have no way, like you have no.
Yeah, but you have
grasp
that
of that.
one thing. You have lived through being lost.
But some people still are. Most people still are.
But I mean, like you say, be ready to give an account of the reason, the hope that lies within you.
Mhm.
We've all, if you truly, before you ever got saved, you had to come to that as,
Even as a
I can't say
Christian,
her name.
you can't.
Come
Even as a
out.
Christian, you can't wrap your mind
Oh, Holly.
around what it's gonna be like.
she had to come to that point that, like I say, she had to come to her hog pen.
Mhm.
She had to come broke down
Mm-hmm.
to the point that, and that's her whole story is cause, let me tell you what the Lord done for me.
Yes.
And the urgency, like Josh even sung a song once. What if Jesus comes tomorrow? What then? We don't. Nobody wants to put it like that. And I heard one fellow, and he preached on this, and he says, and one of his statements that kind of caught my mind, he says, Christians should live their life like they got forever to live, but they should act like today is the last day.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that really, I mean, that's kind of a contrast. You should live like you're going to live for, 100 years. But as a Christian, you should be acting in urgency as this is the last day on earth.
I mean, that's how I drive a car like I'm gonna live 100 years.
But if you really thought about it, how that, if it's like that song says, if Jesus comes tomorrow, will you take a month of Sundays
Mm-hmm.
to confess your sins,
Mm-hmm.
to get right with God,
Mm-hmm.
or
It's
would
what
you,
I asked
or would you
for
be,
something.
or would you say, welcome?
Mm-hmm.
Would you welcome him with open arms,
Mm-hmm.
or would you be ashamed of his appearance?
Mm-hmm. a lot of people don't have the mindset to say that. I hear it all the time say, oh yeah, he's coming back. And then I'll look at them a lot of times, especially at work, if I'm dealing with somebody and they're just talking with me about whatever. If I've got them for a few hours in the ER dealing with whatever's going on, they'll say, oh yeah, he's coming back. And I always look at them just dead down and say, he's already on his way. He's already on his way. And they stop right there. See, the contemplation of it's out there is fine. The weatherman predicts a day, and about 4 o'clock in the evening, you're going to start seeing snow flurries. Now you've got it.
We can track it.
Well, but I've got till 4 o'clock Saturday in my mind. It may even hit a little early, but I've still got till Saturday when the storm gets here, because that's the predicted day and time. Taking all the prediction away and just knowing that he is coming and he's already on his way. That dispels the urgency of how quick that it's going to be. And like I said, the problem that I'm seeing all over the land and country now is there is a lack of what you take a church service. All these churches around here, you can go on the internet and watch church. You can go up to Teresa's stomping grounds in Ohio and trace through the churches. How many churches are we going in that we see a person under 25 years of age in the service doing something?
Josh, Jesus did tell his disciples, it'd be like the days of Noah.
Mm-hmm.
We are living in those days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But how many churches do you go into right now?
I've been.
Go ahead.
And the churches will be falling off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And look around.
Mm-hmm.
At the churches now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember as a kid, the church was packed.
Yeah.
Now,
Maybe a few.
especially on Wednesday, if you have church on Wednesday night,
Yeah.
nobody shows up.
You think about that. When you go in these churches across the land, how many places can you take me to right now that a younger person, 25 and under, is doing something in that service? How many churches can you go to? Anybody know of it? What are we fostering? I always say that. What are we fostering? The culture and times and the world we're in is shaping them very differently than even when I was in school 20 years ago, and how different they are now being put into an environment to take that away. But why are we doing that in the church house? Why are we changing anything in the church from fostering the generation? I hear all the time that the children are the church of today, not tomorrow. That's true, because I don't know if tomorrow's going to make it. But what are we fostering and growing in them right now to do it and face it? And what are we bringing them up to be faithful in, to carry when it comes down to it? And you see that everywhere we go. You see that in sharing knowledge, teaching things and wisdom to younger people to foster that environment. And then the next trivial thing comes to is that you think about the fact of they are also, I don't know if you thought about this or not, they're a voice of whatever church that young person belongs to. They're a voice of it, because wherever they go and whatever question comes up about their belief, however they answer that, most of the time has came from what they've heard, what they were taught. And that's the fostering. And that is a direct revelation or a direct image of what the younger generation is being taught and shown, is directly from what they're getting in the church. And when I got to seeing some youth advertisements for these churches that said we're going to have a 10-minute devotion, well, you got a lot to say in 3 minutes to the 10-year-old, but you got 10 minutes to get it all. And the whole time we're there, you're going to get 10 minutes of things. And you think about that young adult or teenager or whatever is going to be sitting at the school cafeteria table tomorrow when the question comes to the table. And they're just as liable and responsible according to God as me and you are. If they're saved in one of His, they are just as liable to give a reason and an answer for the hope that lies within them. But who is to nurture them in the way and raise them in the way? That's where we're at in today's society. That is also a thing that weakens the power in a lot of things, is the upbringing of the way that young people go into church. Anybody else got anything to add?